SS8H7 evaluate key political, social, and economic changes that occurred in Georgia during the New South era. Element B, analyze how rights were denied to African Americans or blacks through Jim Crow laws, Plessy versus Ferguson, disenfranchisement, and racial violence, including the 1906 Atlanta riot. Our learning target today? I will learn the different ways African Americans were denied rights. During Reconstruction, African Americans or blacks made significant gains politically and socially. All of that changed with the Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow was a fictional character. The laws took away the rights of African Americans. These were laws passed to discriminate against African Americans. Jim Crow laws made it legal to have separate schools, transportation, hotels, restaurants, theaters, and restrooms. Plessy versus Ferguson was a landmark court case that caused quite a stir in the South. Homer Plessy was put in jail for sitting in a white-only section of the East Louisiana Railroad. Plessy was 1/8 black, so he was considered black. This was a planned event that wanted to test out Louisiana's segregation laws. The case was taken all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Plessy was found guilty. The Plessy decision confirmed that separate facilities were legal as long as they were equal. The 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution gave African American men the right to vote. Many Southern states looked for ways to disenfranchise African American men. Disenfranchise means to take away a privilege. In this case, the right to vote. Many Southern states created laws to disenfranchise African Americans. There were 4 ways they did this. Poll tax, a tax on voting. Many African Americans couldn't pay this, but a lot of the times it was waived or passed over for poor whites. The white primary. The Democratic Party was a dominant party in Georgia, so they forbid African Americans from voting in these primary elections. Literacy test. You had to be able to read and write to pass the test. Some whites were passed on, while educated blacks were told they failed the test. The grandfather clause. This clause said if your father voted before the Civil War, you were allowed to vote, without paying a poll tax, without taking a literacy test. It also said if your grandfather fought in the Civil War, you could vote. This was another way to allow poor whites a way to vote. The Atlanta race riots of 1906 were started by a series of newspaper articles saying African American men were attacking white women. These articles eventually were found to be untrue. The riots were caused by jealousy. The unemployed and frustrated whites were jealous of the success that some African Americans had. Georgia was having governor races between 2 candidates, Hoke Smith and Clark Howell. They helped the riots as their campaigns were based on white supremacy and encouraged racial tensions. The riots caused a lot of unwanted attention throughout the country. Leaders from the African American community and the white community got together to help end the riots quickly. This kind of gathering was unheard of. It didn't help much. It led to more segregation and an economic divide between the African Americans.